What time is it? It's Packard Folks at time. Hat? Check. Shirt? Check. Pants? Optional. Mug? Double check. Check us out at cafepress.com/PackardPokesat where you can get all this great merchandise and more.
Do you like Packard Pokesat and want to hear it on demand and on the go? Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. Available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad.
This is Packard Pokesat, and I'm poking at your news. Hello, everybody. This is Packard Pokesat, and tonight we are doing something completely different. We are doing a debate tonight for the first time on the show, so please bear with us because, well, this is just how shit works around here. So, anyway, Connie, would you like to open up our debates, please?
Yes. Well, we have a guest, Solomon. I'm sorry, what's your last name? Solomon
Taylor.
Thank you, as our guest. And the first topic for debate is, how do you know your God of all gods is the correct God? And opening will be Solomon. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. It's the first time I've ever moderated here, and it's been ages since I've been to a debate. So, and I will be keeping the time.
It's the first time for all of us there, Connie.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the time. Are you ready, Solomon?
I believe so.
Okay. Do I ding?
Ding, go.
Okay. All right. So I don't have any kind of introduction whatsoever, but we're just going to be looking through a couple of the make Christianity stand out in comparison to most other major religions. So the first thing is testability. Jesus was a real person, lived in a real place and time in history. He wasn't a mythological figure from once upon a time. We have historical records to say he was a carpenter from the city of Nazareth who lived a little over 2,000 years ago. He was seen by other real people. He was written about by his contemporaries, including people like Pontius Pilate and Josephus, who weren't even involved with the biblical writers. And even the Jewish book, the Talmud, mentions Jesus as well. So all of this is pointing towards a real historical figure. Of course, many other religions have a primary figure. There's Muhammad, Buddha, Joseph Smith, quite a few others. So the question is if there's anything that separates Jesus from the rest of them. And it turns out it's the things that he claims. Well, these people all claim to be prophets of God or pointing to God or enlightenment or whatever. Jesus is the only one who claimed that he himself was God. So he claimed specifically in John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So the question is, did Jesus back up those claims? And absolutely. The things that he said and the life that he lived compose one of the greatest, if not the greatest, examples of how we're to live our own lives. But on top of that, Jesus also performed quite a few signs, miracles that helped emphasize his divinity as well. So the greatest of these, obviously, was the resurrection itself. And Jesus, unlike Muhammad, Buddha, or any other figure, didn't stay dead. After 3 days, he physically resurrected in the same body that he had died in, came out of the tomb where he'd been buried, and then went around to be seen by hundreds of people. And given the public nature of crucifixions, many of the people who saw him had probably been there to see him die as well. So they wouldn't exactly be quick to believe that the laws of nature had been broken like that. They just didn't really have any other explanation for what they were seeing. So because Jesus claimed to be God, Christianity is therefore the one true religion? Not really. There's a bit more to it than that. The next major distinction is that Christianity isn't really even a religion in the first place. So explaining what I mean by that. Defining religion is notoriously difficult, but it generally contains practices and observances that help you appease your god or gods, or align your spirit in a certain way, or attain enlightenment, or achieve whatever your religion's idea of a perfect existence is. It's based on whether or not their good deeds outweigh their bad deeds. Buddhists have to live lives without any sense of desire or want if they want, and so on and so forth. Christianity is different in that we don't think it's possible to win God's favor. and we're imperfect people. So take the sun, for example. We live on a planet that's about 92.96 million miles away from it. It's the reason we have life on our planet in the first place. But if we try and get too close to the sun, being the fragile meat sacks that we are, we just kind of end up disintegrating. It's not because the sun's bad, it's just that we aren't exactly built to survive that kind of experience. His perfection won't allow our imperfection to come anywhere close to him without it first destroying us. So we can keep trying to make ourselves better people, but it's kind of like having a drop of black paint in a white paint bucket. We can add all the white paint we want, it'll never quite get rid of that one black drop in there. And more often than not, we tend to let more than one drop of black paint get into the mix. So yeah, Christianity is pretty unique in its description of us, namely that we suck and can't do much about it. Christians are very aware of that. If you've ever read the Old Testament, you see plenty of prime examples in the nation of Israel. They had a remarkably consistent cycle of following God for a little while, completely falling away over the course of a few generations, getting slapped in the face with a wake-up call, coming back to God, and completely falling away again shortly down the line. So Jesus came to earth because he knew that we were completely incapable of breaking out of that cycle on our own. Part of his mission was to give us an example to follow, but the main reason was to make it possible for us to draw close to God. It's like we were saying earlier, if God were just to tell us right now to draw close to him while we're still imperfect people, we'd die pretty darn quick from the proximity. So that's where grace comes in. Grace is a touchy word because it implies that we weren't good enough ourselves and that someone else had to do the work for us. But that's exactly what happened. Jesus lived a completely perfect life. He was able to draw close to perfection without being destroyed. After all, the sun isn't really harmful to itself. But he chose to give that up. In exchange, he took full responsibility. Okay.
Sorry, time.
Okay. Next time.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I need to, when it's like 10 seconds or 30?
You did fine.
Traditional
Connie.
is
No, you did
traditional
fine.
is
Well,
but this is our first
at
time.
3 minutes.
So
Yeah. This is untraditional at the moment.
Yeah, this is non-traditional.
Okay.
Nothing about
I'm
this show
sorry.
is
I
untraditional.
hear what you said though. Normally, do I stop? I give a warning at what
30 seconds.
what time?
30 seconds.
30 seconds?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
30 seconds. I can do
30
it. All
seconds.
right. Thank you, and I'm sorry about that, Solomon.
Hey,
was my
this is a learning experience for all of us. This is
Yep.
all
And
right.
I hadn't timed this out at all
Okay.
either. So
Thank you very much. All right, Packard, whenever you're ready.
Okay. First off, this is my first time into the formal debate process, so I would ask that everybody please be patient with me. Today we're going to be discussing the topic of how do you know your God is the correct God? Over the centuries, mankind has invented deities to explain things that they could not know, and over time, because we have acquired knowledge that the deities that we used to use to explain a thing that was previously unknown to us, or how that thing happened. For example, Thor was used to explain where thunder and lightning came from. We now know that this is not the case, and poof, there goes Thor as an explanation for that thing. However, as we have had a great deal of these things explained away by a natural rather than a supernatural process, which the religions have used in the previous gods or deities to explain these things, they later coalesced into a lesser and lesser number of gods or deities that they needed to believe in to explain the causes of these previously unexplainable events. Religion has whittled down the number of deities that they used to believe in to a certain one or ones, depending on the religion. But even these groups can't agree on whose god or deity is the correct one. While technically the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims worship the same one, but use a different name for that said god or deity. Everyone has their own idea which one they think is the correct one. Even amongst the believers within those religions don't even agree on how their particular god should be worshipped. Just the number of sects alone within those religions is a good indication of that. I believe Richard Dawkins, or maybe it was Matt Dillahunty who said it best, they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. That's all I've got.
Okay.
So I've got a few minutes, or do I fill up some of the extra time we have?
Well, I guess Packard wants it to be 2-minute sections.
Yes.
I think it was 3 2-minute sections of the back and forth.
Yes.
So that's what we'll do. And when you're ready, I will start the time. And being it's 2 minutes, should I still do 30 seconds to let you know that's your marker that you're almost done? Or 15?
You want 15 seconds or 30 seconds?
30 seconds is probably still.
Okay, I will watch that and just let me know when you're ready.
All right.
Oh, I had you locked down when I was reading. Oops. Okay, sorry about that.
All right.
Okay, you can go ahead.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to word everything.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think the main argument that Packard's bringing up here is that a lot of things that we used to believe just in the past, and we never really didn't have much of a grasp of science and how things worked in the natural world. We would come up with deities and religions and belief systems to explain those things, such as thunder and lightning. There is quite a bit of truth to that, in the fact that we are understanding things a lot better because of science. But there is a fallacy, which is fun on this show. That is, I don't remember the exact name, but in effect, it's if something's old, it must be wrong, and the newer ideas are always the best. So this is a fallacy. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. There's the phrase "oldies are goodies" for a good reason. But aside from that, we are getting off topic a little bit from the original question, which was what makes Christianity unique, or what makes this one God stand out more. And so Packard's final point was they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong, which is entirely possible. But we need to provide some evidence to explain
30 seconds.
Why they're wrong, instead of just assuming that since we have new understandings that are coming in on other things, every religion must be wrong as well. So aside from the fact that we're not using religion to explain thunder and lightning anymore, we're using it to understand how the world came into existence, which is something that science doesn't know the answer to.
Time.
As well as, all right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that would be the appeal to iniquity, for what's old and everything like that. But the fact is that where you say that the science doesn't know how the world began, actually we have a very good indication of that, on how that began by a natural process versus a supernatural process. The fact is that science doesn't have all the answers, but it's the best tool that we have to... Hold on a moment. I apologize. I had a computer error here. We don't have all... Science doesn't have all the answers, but it has ways of finding out those answers through testing and pointing out what is and isn't true, and we use that through a natural process. So the fact is, everybody thinks that their deity is the right one. For example, everybody has their own idea. As I said before, everybody has their own idea what their God thinks and believes. Some Christians will think that their God believes that abortion is okay, and they don't have a problem with people having an abortion. Or the other ones that have the belief that say, no, all life is sacred, so you can't have an abortion. And they have put people into chambers
30 seconds
where they get people to think about what they think and what they think their God thinks, and those same areas of the brain light up. So the fact is that one God is incorrect is probably the more correct term to use, because the fact is that since their God is all created in their minds, they
time.
Nah, sure, go ahead. Sorry. I had a computer
All
error.
right.
I should get time for that.
All right, Solomon.
So there are limits to science. I'm assuming you agree with me on that there are things that science isn't going to be able to figure out. Science is incapable of calculating things that happen in history because we can't go back in history and repeat things, do experiments on history. We have to rely on other methods like the historical method to be able to go and look at what has happened in history based on artifacts, based on eyewitnesses, based on written accounts, and use those to come up with a picture of what happened in that time period. Because science is unable to do that, and we need to rely on other methods. So regarding how the world began, we can do experiments based on what we think could have happened and test and see if those would potentially create a universe or cause a Big Bang or something along those lines. But we aren't able to use science outside of our own hypotheses to guess at what happened because we weren't there and we don't have historical evidence, as far as we know, telling us what happened there, except for creation stories and situations where people have said, this is what happened, this is how the world was created. And so then it becomes a matter of looking at those historical documents to see if they're reliable and analyzing this and analyzing what's the credibility of those documents, seeing what else they say, and if that stands up to scrutiny, and just in general being logical about, is this something that I can rely on as a historical document? And I would argue that the biblical account is by far the most reliable historical document in the world.
Time.
It's going to make a claim there.
Going to your point about that science can't tell what's going on in history or has happened in history is actually a fallacy, because we can go back, not literally in time, but with records that they accumulate through a variety of different locations and places, and then they piece this all together. That is their job, actually. That is a science, to go back to look at all these records and put this all together. And some of the other things, like the fact is the Bible is a correct record, is actually not correct either, because there's a lot of falsifiability there, because people have a tendency to change their stories, or the stories get handed down and they get changed. In the book, the Bible in itself was voted on, and which stories get to stay and which stories they got to throw out, because they didn't have there was no particular way that they wanted the Bible. There was originally no Bible. We have no originals of the Bible, where we have originals of, like, the Code of Hammurabi. We have originals of that. We don't have an original Bible. So we don't have a way to verify any of those stories. And even if we did have an original of the Bible, there's no way to tell that any of those stories that are in the Bible are actually factual at all. They may be based on some factual events, like Spider-Man.
Sorry.
is
20 seconds.
is
Sorry.
based out of New York, but because New York exists doesn't mean that Spider-Man yet still exists. I'll concede the last few seconds.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Okay, and time. All right. This is the third 2-minute section. I think we were doing one more back and forth, and
Yep.
then conclusions.
Yep.
All right. So, Solomon, whenever you're ready.
So it sounded like you were referring to longitudinal experiments, from what I gathered from what you were saying, just saying there are locations that will gather data over time and will gradually come to conclusions based on what they gather. And yes, that's a valid part of science, but that was started in history and with the intent of recording it for that purpose of the experiment. And That's not the same as a historical event where there weren't people who were analyzing the data of, say, World War II and saying, okay, we're going to see if this happens over the course of this amount of time. There's nothing really to experiment on in historical events such as World War II, because they're historical events. They're not, well, yeah, there aren't experiments built into that. What you were saying about the Bible being incorrect because people change their stories, there's actually a remarkable amount of accuracy regarding the Old Testament in particular. The scribes who wrote down the stories of the Bible, like the Bible is a collection of stories. Genesis would be its own book. Exodus would be its own book, so on. The writers for those books would have a validated manuscript copy of the original next to them, and they would transcribe it letter by letter.
30 seconds.
They couldn't even write the word to, assuming it was English. They wouldn't be able to write the word to without looking at the T and then looking back at the O as they wrote it. And if there was a single mistake, it had to be certain type of parchment, certain type of ink quality, all these different regulations on it. If a single thing was messed up, the copy was destroyed. So there was an outrageously high level of accuracy in how it was written.
Going to the point where you said that they would basically destroy parts of the Bible or the writings of thereof if there was a mistake, that's just generally not true, because the fact is that there are a lot of mistakes in the Bible. And regarding the historical events, and I mentioned this before, like where they say, like let's take Spider-Man, for example. Spider-Man takes place in New York. New York actually exists, but Spider-Man is not real. And you revert to stories in Genesis, for example. We covered actually on my other show, the Atheist, the Bible, and No Wardrobe. We covered the story of how Lot left, or was told by God to leave the city. The story in that, the main part of that story is that, you know, God rained fire down from the sky, whatever. That's a volcano. That's an activity of a volcano. A lot of these things are built around natural processes like volcanoes and things like that are going on that they don't explain because they don't understand what they're going on. So they put it down as a supernatural event, which is actually just a natural event. So, and because of the amount of errors that are in the Bible, the fact is that people would think that they would destroy parts that were wrong, and
30 seconds.
It's just not. I don't believe it's true. And language has evolved over the millennia. Because we have a root language, and since words have evolved, the word "to" will evolve from something else completely different. So that's we look at the word "to" with a T and an O that that's just something we invented later on in history. It didn't originate like that.
Time. All right. I do question if we've gone off topic, except I think that the validity of the Bible was brought up and I might not be remembering it correctly. I do apologize. First time as moderator. Now we're up to conclusions.
Yes.
And were we allowing 2 minutes for that or 3?
Yeah, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I think
Two
it was 2 or 3
2 minutes.
Let's just go. Let's go with 3 minutes. I won't need 3 minutes anyway. So.
Okay.
I would prefer 3 minutes, but
Okay.
but that's what I thought I was going with.
Well, you know, I can just give me
everything.
Well, no, just a second. Let me change that to 3. I've got a little timer here on Google. That's what I'm using. So, just reset and let me know when you're ready, Solomon.
All right.
Okay.
So you're saying there are mistakes in the Bible, regardless of the scribal guidelines that they had in place. I'm not quite sure what the point you're trying to make is there. Like if you're saying there are logical errors because miracles can't happen, or if you're saying this contradicts something they say later, or all of the above. in which case we would need a substantial amount of time to go into specifics of those and talk about them. But regarding the accuracy compared to the previous manuscript, they're very accurate on that. Regarding the story you mentioned about the volcano, God raining fire and sulfur on, I believe, Sodom and Gomorrah, it wasn't explained as a volcano because they didn't know what a volcano was, but it was stated that God was the one who had caused that, which is entirely possible if you believe in the supernatural, which they did. And you're saying that because they believe in the supernatural and we know it's a natural event, it's therefore not. You're right, it doesn't have to be supernatural, but in the story, they had people like Lot who were told to leave the city because it's going to be destroyed, which in and of itself, even knowing about it beforehand, would be an example of a supernatural type of event. Of course, we'd have to examine the credibility of the author of the story and things like that to be able to tell if he's telling the truth or just making up the story about God and maybe even Lot in the first place. Regarding language evolving in the word to being completely different, that was completely unrelated. I was using the word to as an example just to show how specific they were regarding whether or not or how often they had to look back at the text. For every letter, they had to look back and see what the next letter was in the word. And I was using the word to as an example, as a word that we would easily go, if we're trying to copy something over, we would take a couple words at a time, type them out, look back. They would take it letter by letter. So that's all that was. Overall, the things that make Christianity unique, we got totally off track from that. But just to sum that up, since it sounds like I have
30
a little bit more
seconds.
time. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Just making Christianity unique is that it is set in a real time and place, like New York, to go off yours, but has historical accuracy from exterior sources such as Josephus and Pontius Pilate, who have written about people like Jesus as well. And the records that we have from that time and the claims that Jesus made are drastically different from
that's
any other
time.
religion.
She said time.
No, he
Yep.
had just a few more words, but
Okay.
thank you, Solomon.
All right. I had a different closing on this actually, so
Okay.
Okay. All right. First off, in closing, I would just like to thank Solomon Tyler for joining us here on Packard Pokes.
Taylor.
Taylor. I'm sorry. Tyler. Taylor. I would like to thank Solomon Taylor for joining us here on Packard Pokes at the No Fallacy Zone. This is the first debate we've ever had on this show. When it comes to gods or deities, as I have stated originally, that they were used to make up a way to explain a thing, as there is no good evidence for one particular god or deity, in my opinion, it is better to not believe in any of them, because over the number of centuries, the number of gods or deities that were used to explain a thing has dwindled down to only a handful of those gods or deities are becoming less and less relevant in our modern society. So the people who still believe in that particular god or deity should ask themselves, am I worshiping the right one, or should I be worshiping any of them at all? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to do a quick commercial, and then when we come back, yeah, I know it was way too short, Deconverted Man, but he says we both had logical errors. Probably, because I'm doing this on the seat of my pants.
It's entirely
so.
possible. Yep.
All right.
Usually we have 5 minutes total of prep time and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
doesn't really happen in a live stream debate.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. We're gonna do a commercial, and then when we come back, we're gonna do for the next one. Can people who don't have belief or a belief be moral, basically? So, and then we're gonna open that one up to the chat room, so they can join us on the live chat here with us, and we're just gonna have it's not gonna be a formal debate. We're just gonna have a little discussion. Okay. All right. Very good.
All right.
All right. We'll be back here in just a few moments.
While we are poking at your news, you can poke us at Facebook and Twitter, or poke us with an email at ppapodcast@gmail.com. or leave us a message at 662-709-PPAP. Join us live on YouTube/Packard Pokesat on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time. Be part of the conversation by live chatting with us during the show. Enjoy the show? Help support us by becoming a monthly patron at patreon.com/Packard Pokesat. Or look awesome by buying something at cafepress.com/Packard Pokesat. No money, no problem. You can help us by sharing the show with friends and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. For everyone that shares and rates us, you kick ass.
The Atheists,
The Bible.
and No Wardrobe, the podcast.
Wait a minute. No wardrobe? You mean we're going to be naked while we do this?
Well, seeing how I'm an atheist and I'm reading the Bible, and since clothes are flammable,
Fire! Fire! Fire!
I thought it might be a good idea to take them all off first.
Naked or not, follow along as we read, analyze, and try to keep you from falling asleep as we go through this boring-ass book.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. Who knows? We may even be on YouTube someday. Okay, I'm going to open up the chat. You know what? The thing is, I actually had a graphic I was going to put up on the side here, and I forgot to put it up. I might as well just put it up now. See, there's the no fallacy zone. This was going to be, this was supposed to be the debate topic for the first one, just so everybody could see it. That was supposed to be the first one. I do apologize. I blew it.
We went pretty off topic.
Yeah, I kind of blew it. That's all right. We were a little off topic. That's
It was
all
a
right.
good discussion.
It was a good discussion. All right, well, for the second one, can non-believers be moral? So if you would like to join us, there's a link in the Hangouts for us. So everybody can join in. Connie and Tom, you can join in on this one too. So what do you think that people who are that non-believers can be moral?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Can I, wait, no. I think the question is going to be whether, like, what we're defining as moral. Are we assuming there is some kind of set moral code, or is this a flexible moral code, cultural moral code? How are we going to define morals?
Mm-hmm.
Biblically moral or socially moral?
Hey, deconverted man.
Question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hear me good, or does it suck?
It's kind of sucks.
All right, how about now?
Still kind of sucks.
A little better. A little louder.
A little better, but it still kind of sucks.
Okay, I can get my microphone, my real microphone. It's the webcam.
Yeah, you're the one you've got now. Sounds like you're
Not your imaginary microphone.
You're getting on it.
It sounds like it sounds like
Right.
you're being hit by a Dalek there.
Dalek.
All right.
A Dalek.
Dalek.
Destroy.
I call
I don't know
I call them
about- I
Daleks,
don't
but Daleks.
Don't make me send a weeping angel
Dalek.
to you.
No weeping angels. You can't. That's the thing. That's the thing
Don't
about
blink.
weeping angels.
Don't blink.
Yeah. Well, if you that's. I'm not even going to get into that right now. We'll get into that after the show. Anyway.
Well, I think the reason we're bringing it up is, can you be good without God?
Yeah.
You know, and why would, for myself, the question comes down to, well, why would God create imperfect beings? You know, and being he can't be omniscient and not understand that this was something that was going to happen. Going back to the Garden of Eden, that's
Right.
exactly where the whole thing falls down. Why isn't good enough? And you know, why wouldn't it be?
Right.
I don't think that anybody here would argue that, yeah, we should just be able to do whatever we want and damn the consequences.
I want to do whatever I want, Connie.
Well, some of us would argue that. Because again, well, okay, I'm sorry. It's kind of a lot to unpack, but the whole, going back to what you were arguing in the first debate, why do we need Jesus at all? Why would a God who is so perfect that he can't have imperfection in his sight, why would he make imperfect beings?
Why would he make the devil? Because he did make the devil, after all.
Well,
if he existed, he made the devil, and the devil was imperfect. So
Lucifer,
he would have known. Yeah, he would have known that he was going to make something imperfect.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I don't know. I just don't think, I don't think it's the model of a loving parent.
Definitely not
parent,
a loving parent.
And I don't know. There's
To make an imperfect creature, or like, what do you mean there? Sorry.
No, just that the example of hell is, again, the point in a lot. I suppose I should ask you a question for yourself.
Okay.
with your beliefs. Do you think that do you believe that original sin is what sends us? Is the unforgivable thing? I mean, is that at what point could a child, for example, go to and be with God without having been accepted Jesus as a savior?
Let's do the
that's a good question.
There you go. Now you sound a lot better.
That's much better. That is much better.
Yeah, that is. You sound so much better. You actually sound human again.
I don't see the need for a savior begets the idea that God can't just forgive sin.
What the hell are you doing? All right.
Well,
webcam.
So the thing is,
right.
Okay. Well, with forgiveness in general, you can forgive someone for, say, trying to think of something off the top of my head.
Sure.
You can forgive someone for, say, stealing your bike, but you're still going to have to deal with the stolen bike. Like, it's not, the consequences don't disappear of the actions. You still reap what you sow in that sense. Forgiveness doesn't fix that. But regarding your original question as to original sin and children, all that, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm wording everything.
Deconverted, real quick here. Deconverted man, I had to mute you. You were trying to test your mic or whatever, and then you were kind of cutting in over top of it, whatever it was saying. I muted you, but you can unmute yourself. I apologize.
I thought.
There you go. There you go.
Maybe my
I can't plug in my good microphone then.
That's fine. You're fine the way you are. You sound okay right there.
Well, maybe my question is poorly phrased, but the whole reason for Jesus' sacrifice, for me, stemmed back to original sin. That's how I was taught, right? And so to have original sin, well, usually it's a literal Adam and Eve, but it's that no one is perfect. And so why couldn't a God just forgive people? I mean, I know you said, okay, I actually like I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but I like your example of a stolen bike, okay? Because, well, a stolen bike is something that it could be solved. You could get the person could work and give you a new bike, right? Pay it for out of their pocket. They could do community service, and that would be time served. But do you think that a death sentence, or a death sentence is not really a death sentence, but just basically being tortured forever, is adequate punishment for someone stealing a bike? Because when we talk about why people need to be saved, it's particularly, I know for a lot of people, and for me when I was a believer, it was too. It was about loving God, and being grateful. But it also, in no small sense, is about that punishment that is there if you're not a believer in Jesus, right? and that sacrifice and that grace. And so I just don't see how that is. I don't see the logic in that. I don't see the sense in that, because the punishment's not fitting the crime. Pretty much anything we do temporally here on earth is not worthy of that kind of sentence. Granted, everybody could think of a few examples, like Hitler or something like that, you say, yeah, that person was pretty much a real jerk. He was very awful person.
I was listening to somebody who said that they actually had to defend. It's like, well, he said that everybody has some good in them. So someone's like, well, what about Hitler? So I'm like, okay, well, he was a good orator, and he was a painter. So
he used to paint.
Yeah, he used to paint.
He's a pretty good painter.
He probably. Well, he was a failed painter, but he was, but he was a painter. I mean,
subjective.
So
yeah.
What was the topic though? Wasn't it?
It was morality. So.
Right. I'm like,
can you be good?
What's going
without
on?
God?
Yeah. Can you be good
without God?
Yeah. Can you be good without God?
But I think that I think the question's malformed. But
yes, I would agree. It's half. It's half.
We're all in agreement on the question.
It's
just
question.
How do we define morality?
Well,
what the new question becomes.
You have ethics, which forms your morality. You can't have. I mean, I don't know which developed first. I suspect it was the morality, and then the ethics came as a way to explain and formalize the choices that one would make. So there's different flavors, if you will, of ethics, and those ethical systems then result in a different morality. So I, for example, subscribe to utilitarian ethics, which is doing the most good for the most people and the least harm to the least amount of people. And so what morality is would depend on the ethical system that one has.
And then the question would be what you're defining is harm and good. Like, what's good and bad?
Harm, I think, is simple to define because we can feel pain. And so it's fairly straightforward that, this action will create pain or create suffering in another life form. And is that a necessary thing to do?
I'm thinking about
children and
immunizations right now.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of people who particularly want to go out and like pain. It's like people like the BDSM.
I'll get to that because that is dealt with utilitarian ethics.
Yes, no, I agree. I'm just that's just when you start.
Yeah. So if we have a system where we have to use hypodermic needles, they're very minimal amount of pain for a little bit of time to achieve a greater end. So there you're causing the least amount of pain to provide the most amount of possible positive result.
Right.
So it's you
like
can get
like acupuncture. People will use acupuncture. It's not a thing, but it doesn't do anything.
It's a placebo effect.
But it's a placebo, right?
Yeah. It has that effect. Plus, I mean, there's problems with it. I mean, you can get infected very easily with that. But it's a placebo effect. But at any rate, so whatever your ethical system is, and that would be what defines your morality. So the question is, what role may or may not God play in your ethical system? Now, for myself, since I'm a skeptic and an atheist, because I'm a skeptic, it plays no role. But somebody that has a God, it might play a role, or it might not. It depends on, what they view their God
definitely does.
doing in their ethical system. Now, I could make a debate on this all day long, but I would argue that if one subscribes to divine command theory, then you have no ethics, thus you can't have morality. But if you don't subscribe to DCT, then you can have ethics and morality be independent of the God and what you think it wants or doesn't want or whatever. So, but I mean, that's a huge, that's a huge whole thing. But essentially, the answer is a simple yes. I mean, yes, people have morals. If we're trying to look at,
I think we would all agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to look at,
morality
like
morality is more morality is fluid, I believe. I mean, well, it's somewhat fluid.
Well,
anyway.
the Joker has morality.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Solomon.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, right. It's just, what does this? Yeah, everyone has morality. It just depends on the ethical system. So,
right.
What needs to be evaluated is the ethical system. So, what ethical system does Christianity provide? Well, it depends who you ask.
Right.
Solomon here might have his own independent ethical system that may or may not have a name to it or a framework exactly or whatever, but it might fit within certain ideas in ethics or whatever. It may or may not have connections to what he thinks God desires for him to do or not do or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The larger question I would ask, or I'd want to ask, is ethics, no matter what it is, whatever it is that applicable to God? And if not, then we would have to view God as amoral.
I would definitely view him as that. If God were real, I would definitely view. I'm getting an echo from somebody here.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
It's not from me. If God were real, I would definitely say he's definitely amoral or immoral, actually, based on just because, like I said, you saw the commercial where we're actually reading the Bible and everything like that, and I got to tell you, the more I read that Bible, the angrier I get.
Yeah, well, immoral, it would have to have an ethical system, and it would have to.
I don't think it has any of them. I don't think it even has an ethical system at all.
Well, yeah, so then
it
would be amoral then. I don't know, but does God have an ethical system? Does it have morality? Or is it just, as many theists have said, it is good by its nature, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But then the problem, okay, I mean, yeah.
Solomon, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying not to butt in.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. It's an open discussion, open forum here.
You gotta butt in because I'll just keep talking.
Yeah. We had him on and we couldn't shut him up. We had him on. We had the Geek Converted Man on a while back as a guest, and he just wouldn't shut up.
All right.
Well, it's just because I'm more entertaining than you. Oh,
yeah, I know. I just.
Wait, my battery's running low. Yeah.
Oh man!
We
confirmed Solomon's a robot.
Did you go all Saber on us there, Solomon?
Do you need to move your computer to a battery source or something?
I need to plug in.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
He said his battery ran out and he needs to plug in. Robot confirmed.
Yes.
Robot confirmed.
Thank you much.
He did not say my computer needs to do it or my phone. No, he said my battery. I need to plug in. That's what he said. Just saying. He's a robot.
Jeez.
I've been watching this show called Humans.
Yes. I was just thinking of that exact TV show. That's a great show.
I'm like,
that show actually brings up a good question about the morality because those humanoids or whatever they are, they're some of them they're awake, some of them are awake or whatever, and some of them have chosen ethics that are questionable based on the way they were treated, so they think that this is the way they should treat everybody else.
Right. Well, many scientists have said we're going to have to figure out AI ethics.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should eventually figure out AI ethics.
Let's see what happens. Screw it.
There we go.
Welcome back, Solomon. You were going to say?
I completely missed everything that was said over the past
we were just
minute
talking.
or so.
We're just talking about a
They
TV
were
show.
BSing.
We were just BSing talking about a TV show called Humans.
I was
You
explaining
didn't miss much. You didn't miss much.
Yeah. Okay, so what I said, to recap what I said so that you could respond to it, because I might have drifted into a tangent, was that my question would be, is if there is an ethical system that would apply to God, and if not, my conclusion would be, therefore, it would not have morality. We'd have to view it as amoral. So it's two separate, it's a question and then a conclusion based on that. So you can address either or both.
Well, all I heard
And
was
let me know.
the ending half of your conversation that I just had another lag spike. This is great.
Okay, do I need to say that again?
If you could real quick, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, here we go again.
Talking.
All right, let me just start from the beginning. Okay, 4.54 billion years ago. Wait, no.
Let's not go back that. I don't have that much time.
Oh, well, we're watching Cosmos.
14 billion years ago, there was a singularity. No. Okay, so I'd ask if there's an ethical system that applies to God, and I'll just leave it at that and find out what you think the answer would be to that, or if there is an answer.
Okay, so I would say that, well, being the creator of the universe, God, basically his own nature is the moral code for everyone else, since we're created in God's image. So the inherent moral code that we see worldwide, like there aren't people who celebrate selfishness or...
Well, actually, we have a lot of people who celebrate selfishness. Trump.
Well, true. We're going to cap it.
Trump.
That was a bad example. That celebrate cowardness would be a better example. Or that celebrate killing people who were friendly to you, unless you're a psychopath.
Well, actually, that what you just said there, you kill people who were nice to you. You were killed. They killed people who were nice to you. Actually, that's very that's very fun. No, yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm getting to, because we've been covering the Bible and the Atheist, the Bible, and the Wardrobe. I know, shameless plug.
Yep.
We actually, one of the segments that came out today was segments of what we read from 34:1 through 34:30 or something like that. I'd have to look the exact number.
In Genesis, or
in Genesis, yes, in Genesis. And there was the story there is that this Jacob's son or daughter or whatever had Dinah had went off and got with this other dude, and the brothers get all pissed off and they cocked him into circumcising himself, and then that wasn't good enough. Says, oh no, you got to circumcise everybody else because you had sex with our sister or daughter or whatever. And then as soon as they had everybody else in the city, all the men had been circumcised, they killed everybody there. And then after he had talked them, he got them to talk everybody else into circumcising just so he can get with this other woman. So he's like, hey, we're going to be like one big family, but we got to do this thing because they are that way, so we have to be that way. So, I'm a friend. I'm a friend. I help you move. I won't cut off a piece of my dick for you, though.
Well, the thing was with that story.
I really want to get this answer because I didn't understand your answer. You were talking about human behavior.
Yes.
And I'm trying to figure out how that is there an ethical system? Maybe you don't know its name or whatever. Do you think there is an ethical system that would apply to God?
That applies to God?
Yeah.
Like that he is going to follow, or that he is created, or what?
Yeah, I mean, either way. I mean, however you want to look at it. Like,
I think that his nature does have a moral system, yes.
Okay, so there is some sort of framework, even if we're not aware of it. And thus, whatever that ethics is, within that framework, there would be morality.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, figuring out what that is that doable?
To a degree, like being, well, yeah, to a degree it is, given that God is an infinite, omniscient being, it's impossible to fully understand him, not being omniscient ourselves.
Well,
But
I've never liked that answer as an
Okay.
answer. No, I'm just saying, because the fact is, like, everybody says, well, God's this great thing, we can never fully understand it, but then they go around and they say, well, God says this because we understand that part of it or something. Like,
Yeah.
If you,
Well, it's
I
like
mean,
it's
that's
like
me,
saying
though.
if I can't know everything, then I don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
that's an extreme, but I wouldn't say that.
maybe that's a little bit broad, but it's immediately what comes to mind, I guess.
At any rate,
I'm saying we do have a limited understanding. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like
okay. So
there's an example. I think it was C.S. Lewis had this analogy where he thought as an atheist that trying to know God was, or I could be totally butchering this. He compared it to Romeo trying to get to know Shakespeare. And it's not really possible. Like, God is unknowable in that sense. But at the same time,
Romeo was a fictional character.
Yes,
but
it would be as if.
Right.
It would be. It's a metaphor.
Right. So within this limited framework of understanding, if we can have this ethical system graphed out in some way, mapped out, that would be, I think, a good place to start for discussion of, is God breaking its own morals, at least within, maybe there's parts we have question marks on, but here's the ethical framework we know about, and is God adhering to that? And what would that look like if a human did it? Because that, I think,
would go to the Ten Commandments as basically as ground laws for human behavior.
But that only applies to humans, not to God.
Okay, I got to jump in finally.
Go ahead, Tom.
Anyways, okay.
What is the whole point of the Bible if it is not a book in order to know God? If the Bible is not there for people to understand who and what God is, what is the point of it? If we can't get our morals out of it without having to completely read into every single passage and figure out what it's trying to say, what is the point of the Bible?
I wouldn't say you have to read into every single passage in the Bible to figure out what the morals are.
But pretty much, I mean, everyone reads the Bible and it's like, well, that's not what it really says. Those are the words that it says, but here's what it really means.
There are passages like that. Some get mixed up in translation.
And everyone says you can't really know God. You can't really know what God's intent is. But you got this book that is basically written to get to know God.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work.
Well, the overall goal of the Bible isn't a moral code. It isn't anything like that. The overall goal is to basically present the story of history in the sense of how our life, how humanity is basically rebelled against God, and that's mostly showcased in the Old Testament with the Israelites in particular, showing them failing time and again against God, and
so
then
the
New
Bible
Testament
is a book on how we got it wrong.
Yes, in the Old Testament,
yeah.
And that's where the New Testament comes in, is saying, okay, we're screwed up. We've spent like 40 chapters for however long the Old Testament is. I can't think of it off the top of my head. 36 chapters, something like that. Saying that humanity sucks. So what do we do about it? And that's where the New Testament comes in. That's where Jesus comes into the picture and is saying, this is this is how we can work this out. Like, you on your own aren't able to, but I've done it for you. and I'm inviting you into that.
So again, I ask, what is
Yeah.
the point of the Bible? If the Bible is a book telling us how we got it wrong, what purpose does that serve? Shouldn't it be a book on telling us what we should have done rather than how we screwed up? It's basically a book of punishment. It's like, here's why you failed, and here's what is going to happen to you if you continue to fail.
A lot of the Old Testament is that as well. But yeah, let's see. Trying to think how to phrase this. So the overall goal, well, yeah, one of the main messages of the Bible is we as the human race are screwed up. Something went wrong going way back to Genesis, and we haven't, there's no way that we're able to fix that. We all make mistakes. We all screw up. We all do things that we would later regret, or even regret in the moment and do them anyway. But
so how does it become a moral guide?
It's not. That's not the point of the Bible. That's not the point of Christianity.
I'd like to kind of draw it back to morality, if that's cool with Packard and such.
Sure, go ahead. I'm trying to.
Okay.
I'm trying to
I had a
figure this out
question
here.
for the entire panel, including myself, and a separate question for Solomon, because I believe he's the only believer in here, if I'm correct.
I'm pretty sure.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. No.
We're all godly.
Yes, I'm the
I'm-
only.
I'm an
I suddenly believe now.
I'm an heathen. All right.
I'm an atheist.
Actually,
I was a believer for a long time.
Yeah,
technically I'm a lobsterist, but that's, I'm not gonna. Okay. Okay. So the question I would like to pose for us pesky atheists is, if there was some sort of situation I could construct, the consequences are dire, but all you had to do was say that there was this certain God to prevent this cataclysmic destruction. Would you do that? And then the opposite way for the believer, that is, if there's some cataclysmic destruction and all you have to do to stop it is to deny that there's a God. Would you do it? And yes, no, why?
I would say, if I answer first, I would say that it would be totally against my own understanding, the things that I've researched into and personally believe, to say that, and I would not make that any kind of cataclysmic event that
you'd be like, well, we're all screwed, but I'm not going to deny God. Basically,
as in the world's ending or something like that.
Whatever horrible thing you can think of. Sure, the world ending, or the universe will implode, or we'll just no longer have cheese whiz, whatever it is.
No, don't take my cheese whiz! Don't take my cheese whiz! I'll believe in God if I get my cheese whiz!
Look. I'm just saying, it's something different for everyone, okay?
Fair enough.
But okay, so your answer would be, you would not
be intellectually dishonest with myself. No.
Right. Okay. That's a fair answer. There's no right or wrong. It's not a trap. But whatever Packard says is automatic.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
Just letting you know, Packard is automatically wrong. Go ahead, everyone else, please.
I hate being wrong.
I think that's a fallacy. This is the no fallacy zone.
Look, man, don't get me started.
All right.
All right, let's do.
I think that anything that would be causing destruction of mankind in general, I don't know. I don't know why I'd have to invoke the name of a god or gods to stop it. Because it's like, I think that there's. Are we in Vegas? Are we rolling odds?
Look. The thought experiment is it doesn't. Don't
so
read too much.
I would just. Well, I don't know. I would probably question a bunch, but what would probably lead my thinking and emotion at that time was if it saves my family, the people I love, and even the people that I think are just jerks, but they haven't done anything really awful. I would say, yeah, I'll say whatever magic words you think are going to work.
Then the question is if it's the words that are doing it, or if it has to be an actual solid.
Well, for
really
this
believe it's not.
No, there's a good point.
Yeah, there's just
because I think I would fail, Solomon, because I would just be like, look, I don't have unless you have given me proof that I need to fear you, because again, destruction. This is a vow based on fear, and I won't say much more than that, but it's like, yeah, again, people say a lot of things when they're on death row, so.
Yeah.
Right. So you would say, you'd say, okay, there's a, yes, God is real in order to prevent the cataclysmic destruction, in order to prevent that cataclysmic destruction.
See, okay, because for myself, one of my newest son-in-laws this last year said, if there was proof, if science could prove that it could find it, find the God gene, right? Would you believe in God? If everything else has been solved and there's this one thing and we can't explain it, so therefore God. I said, sure, if they can show it's God. Whether I worship it,
yes,
that's so.
Yeah, right. That's not the thing. I'm just,
that's
just believing there is a God.
That's actually a good answer Connie gave.
Yeah.
Because people, I've asked people, it's like, well, if you can prove God, if God, came down or whatever and said, hey, I'm here, people, they say, well, then that would destroy my faith. And it's like, why would that destroy your faith? You believe Burger King exists, right? You can go to Burger King. Does that destroy your faith in McDonald's because Burger King exists?
Yeah, that's something I don't get. That's something like almost a blind faith.
Depending on the God, I'm probably screwed because I'm not going to follow it more than likely. But it's a separate question. But does anyone else have a different answer to that particular?
Tom.
Waiting for Tom.
I completely lost my train of thought.
Come on, Tom. Okay, so the question, Tom, is the destruction of the entire universe and/or Cheese Whiz is at stake here.
Cheese Whiz, it's got to be Cheese Whiz.
I don't know. Whatever it is that floats your boat. I don't know. Maybe there's no more.
Well,
no more L. The letter L doesn't anymore. I don't know. So you're Tom Eads from now on. Whatever. And all you have to do to prevent this cataclysm is say, yes, there's a God. Would you not? Why?
Sure, why not? Because there's no God to make judgment. So if there's a real danger from a real source, and they demand that I say, yes, there is a God, I'd have no problem saying, yes, there is a God. Because a real person is a real danger. But if somebody said, God's going to do this unless you admit there's a God, I would still say it because there wouldn't be a danger either way. But it's like, okay, if that makes you happy, if that's what floats your boat is me saying that there's a God, whoop-de-doo.
And does our host have a different view?
Our host?
Oh, me?
Packard.
No, the other host.
You.
Yes.
You.
Or Connie.
Surprise, I'm the host. What are you talking about?
I have the same.
Who's running this thing?
I don't know.
Sorry,
I've lost
Sullivan?
track. Actually, I have the same opinion that if as Tom's and Connie's combined in there, if there was, like, say, an asteroid or something coming along and said, all you have to do is just say, I believe in God, and there's proof the asteroid exists. And if there was evidence to the fact is, if I say, okay, I believe in God, and then the asteroid will divert off, but only if I say those magic words, then I will do it. But if there's no evidence to the fact is that that's going to happen by me just saying, hey, yeah, there's magic juju, I believe in the magic juju, and the comet still comes and shatters us, then it's completely pointless.
Magic juju on the mountain?
Yeah, magic juju on the mountain. Yeah. But I wasn't quite finished.
Oh, sorry.
But however, with that said, with that said,
Excuse me.
that's all right. With that said, if there was evidence of that happening, that said, yeah, that I believe it. That's fine. But would I, again, with what Connie said, would I worship it? Absolutely not. Especially if it's the God of the Bible. Not from what I've read of the God, especially of the God of the Bible. I would not worship that God at all. I believe it existed, like I believe Burger King exists, but it doesn't affect my life. I could still walk into McDonald's if I want to.
That's the thing is belief.
Yeah,
you can't make somebody believe something
without evidence.
That wasn't the question. So my answer is kind of difficult for me because I view that my duty is to the truth, but my ethical system requires the least harm to the least people, the most good for the most people. So I have to lie in order to save humanity or Cheese Whiz or whatever it is.
Cheese Whiz! Cheese Whiz!
And so, yeah, so I would say, well, it's an ad ballum, but okay, God exists, if that's what you want me to hear. If that will stop you, fine, I'll say that. Right. But I don't know that it will stop you, but I'll go ahead and lie just even though it's a fallacious argument that you're making by creating an ad ballum, an appeal to a threat, but yeah, I'll do it.
Right.
Because I choose survival over the lie, even though I'll say, hey, by the way, what I said was a lie afterwards. Like, just
couple random disclaimers.
Hey, look, this is what you wanted me to do, so I'll do it. But there's a difference.
I've actually heard Matt Delahunty talk about this. Like, say if someone comes up to you and says, "All right, you say that you believe in God, or I'm going to kill you," and say, "Yeah, okay, I believe in God.
Yeah,
I believe in God. Then, yeah, that's sure. I'll believe
rub the lotion in, or else I will
rub the lotion in, because I don't want to get the hose again."
But there's always a line drawn somewhere. There is something that somebody would or would not capitulate to.
Right.
As a nation, the United States has kind of this policy that we do not negotiate with terrorists.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But we did. Okay. I don't know if we have that now, but we did.
It's coming.
Well,
probably coming.
Anyway, we still do.
Yeah.
They'll negotiate
for now.
to a point, at any rate.
Right.
But
deconverted men.
If I capitulate on this, I might have to capitulate again and again and again. So it is this question of at what point do you draw that line? Obviously, that's where your ethics
the question
comes in.
I think saying you believe in God is zero. It's worth nothing.
Right.
If somebody said, would you not execute, but would you what's the word when you give up a kid?
Sacrifice.
Adoption.
Now you have to sacrifice your firstborn son to me, or else blah. Yeah.
If you sacrifice to God your child, or any living thing for that matter, would you be willing to sacrifice a living creature in the name of my God to save such and such? Then I would draw the line. Then
I would draw
my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law. Then yes.
But if somebody says, "Would you admit to believing in God?" Sure, why not?
There goes the mother-in-law jokes. Listen, I hate to cut this short, but we're a little over time. Yeah.
I'll see. That's because morality sucks.
Yeah, it does. I hate being moral and doing the right thing.
Wait, that was mortality, not morality. I meant mortality.
Oh, mortality. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Obama.
Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Trump. Anyway, can't say Obama anymore.
Trump.
Thank Trump. Anyway, all
right. That's right.
Anyway, we'll be back. If you like the show, please go to patreon.com/PackardPokesat. Hit and donate a few dollars. That'd be great. Keep my lights on here. And we'll be back next week with our Okay, Let's Talk. What our discussion is going to be, I don't know yet. We haven't talked about what we're going to talk about yet. So, but we're going to open up the chat room for everybody on that same night. So that way, everybody, if you would like to come and join us, you're more than welcome to. So we'll see you then. This has been Packard Pokes At, and this is the No Fallacy Zone.
And that's a wrap.